Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk NMB. The show is typically hosted by our wonderful city manager, Esmond Scott, but at the moment he's been called to some other duties that he needs to attend to. So naturally, he sends his regard. So he's leaving the responsibility in the hands of his co-host. I'm Sharon Ragunan, the Assistant City Manager of the City of North Miami Beach. And also on the call, we have Horace McHugh, and he's on this call as well. And we're looking forward to this session. Hope everyone's doing well. For the last few weeks, we've had this show as a way to communicate some of the things that we're doing here locally, as well as to share with you what some of our friends and partners within the city are doing to help us and to help with the community. And so without further ado, we have Gail Smith with us. She is with Cigna, and she is the subject matter expert with regard to Cigna and sales, and specializing in the behavior clinicals area. And she's here with us today to kind of talk to us about, the environment that we're in now. How do we cope with potential fears or concerns about what's taking place in the environment? Do we, how do we kind of build that resiliency or learn about certain coping mechanisms to get us through this? And at the same time, try to find balance in our lives as we're trying to work, attend to regular lives, work lives, and potentially other layers of stress that might be affecting us in our daily lives. So Gail, welcome to our show, our program. We thank you for your time. We know you're probably just as busy as us. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what you're going to walk us through and why you think it's so important for us to hear your message today.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks again for having me. So obviously, as you mentioned, I'm with Cigna. Been there about 8.5 years. By trade, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and board-approved clinical supervisor.
Okay, sorry, Gail, you're coming in a little bit. You must have changed something with your mic. You're coming in with an echo.
I didn't.
You sound better now.
Okay. So do you want me to repeat that?
Try it again.
Okay. So obviously, Gail Smith with Cigna, been there about 8.5 years, and by trade, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and board-approved clinical supervisor.
I'm sorry. Are you talking through a phone or through a?
I'm on my computer audio because I couldn't get connected through my phone, and that's what I was telling you during our mic check, is that sometimes it doesn't always come through clearly. So, I can try to switch to phone audio, but I couldn't dial in whenever I tried to dial in.
I think when you talk slower, it comes through a little bit clearer. Try it again.
You know what? If you want to do your other quick updates, I can quickly dial in through my phone. That'll be better.
Okay, let's try that.
Okay.
Let me know when you're ready. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Oh, she sounded great just then. You just did. Okay, so while we give Gail some time to work on the audio issues just now, why don't we go ahead and Adania, since you're on the line with us, give us the census numbers. And at the moment, what I'll do is actually, let me just first recognize one of our commissioners who's on the Zoomcast with us, Commissioner Kramer. Barbara Kramer is with us today. And so we'll invite her later on to talk a little bit about her event that's going to take place next week, Thursday. Adania, are you able to tell us what's going on with Census? Give us a little overview on tomorrow, what's happening.
Well, I would like to say that we will be out in Highland Village tomorrow. We will be part of the caravan at 11:30, and we will be set up at the community, outside the community center, with staff and hotspots and computers, so we can help the community participate in the census. And we'll have some snack bag giveaways and census items for everyone that participates in the census. So it ought to be a great event. And as of today, we are at 52%, which
we're getting there.
We're getting there. But I want to say that at the same time, we are only about 14% away of what we were in August in 2010. And in the middle of this difficult circumstances. So we're going to keep pushing forward because I'm sure we're going to make it.
So tell us what the residents and the neighbors around Highland Village can expect tomorrow. And what time should they be looking out for you?
So our tent will be set up by 11:30, and we will have 2 staff members at the tent ready to start doing census at that time. We will also be doing the caravan in the community at that time. And as we go through, we will let everybody know that they can go back to the to the Highland Village Community Center, that we will have the tent there to provide assistance. So they can enjoy the caravan and then come back and meet with us as we help everyone conduct the census.
Yeah, so we'll have it's a major exhibition that we can expect to see tomorrow in Highland Village, and we're looking forward to everybody's participation as well. I wanted to also recognize Commissioner Smith has also joined the Zoomcast. Hello, Commissioner Smith. And we're going to turn it back over to Gail.
All right, perfect. I think we should be good now. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
All right. And can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Third time is a charm, I bet. So let me go ahead and start again. Gail Smith from Cigna, been there 8.5 years. By trade, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a board-approved clinical supervisor. So as you can probably tell by hearing my background, I am passionate about all things mental health and emotional health. And since this crisis, or pandemic rather, started, one of the things that I have been saying behind the scenes is, yes, but what about mental health? What about, you know, our emotional well-being? And I think that's why this topic is so important. I just want to share a couple of introductory stats or facts with you, and I think that will help give you a sense for why I think this topic is so important. You know, if you've ever looked at some of the research that Cigna has done on loneliness, for example, we've seen a huge rise in loneliness levels. In 2018, 2 out of 5 people reported significant levels of loneliness that was impacting them on a personal day-to-day level. And we know it's on the rise. When we repeated that study at the end of last year, 3 in 5 people reported escalated levels of loneliness. It's probably no surprise. People who live alone during this pandemic are struggling the most. So I anticipate that that will continue to increase. One of the other areas to think about is substance use, and people who are either struggling with that or might be in recovery. Having social support is very important to their sustained and long-term recovery. And another survey that went out, you know, 42% of those respondents indicated that they are consuming alcohol during their working hours. So we know that that's also something that has increased. The mental health provider community, my peers, are anticipating that we could have a mental health crisis post-COVID. You know, will we have enough providers to provide treatment? Will we have enough beds available in facilities? That's one of the concerns. Express Scripts, our pharmacy vendor, you know, they did a study that was already in the midst anyway, and they found that just in a 1-month period from mid-February to mid-March, that anxiety medications were 34% more prescribed than the previous months pre-COVID. You know, some of the other ones we've seen on the rise, antidepressants, sleep medications. So we know that this is impacting people. Over half of people have said, I am more stressed during this COVID pandemic than I was before COVID. Some of the hotlines, crisis hotlines, texting hotlines, they've all seen an increase as well. There's been an uptick in first responder calls, and what they're saying is we're concerned about impacting and infecting other people. So that's been a huge stressor for them during this time. And there's sort of been waves that have happened during this time, and that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about here. those areas are stress, anxiety, and not only loneliness, but grief as well. So I'm going to kind of move us forward here. The more we know about the real dangers of the virus, the more that we can take effective steps to avoid or minimize them and put some of our fears to rest. So having accurate information is really effective to try to combat those fears. Media coverage can really arouse our emotion and increase our levels of fears, especially if we're, having it on 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. So it's important to get those facts, but it could be helpful to limit your exposure to the news and not be listening to those over and over again. And it's important to also just be aware about, how you and your family members are responding to these news stories. And of course, limiting that news coverage if it becomes distressing for you. The term in and of itself, pandemic, is a scary one, right? So it's important to stay aware and informed, but to make sure that your level of fear also doesn't exceed your risk factors or your level of risk. It can just make us feel very anxious and helpless during this time, like we can't do anything. So knowing how to minimize your own risk can also help reduce some of the fear and the anxiety. The World Health Organization, as well as the CDC, are great places to go that have credible information about how to reduce your risk of contracting the virus. The first wave, definitely anxiety about getting sick or getting other people sick. We want to spend time doing things that can distract us from our worries and our fears, and that can help us feel more calm and more balanced. Awareness means paying attention to the news that's going on around us, right? Specific to where we live, but awareness is not the same thing as living in constant fear. Constant fear can create stress that's just really counterproductive. It does nothing for us, and it can be harder to deal with a true risk when everything seems like it could be a danger, right? Simple things like going out to the grocery store or picking up your prescriptions. So, we want to focus on what's happening and what the realities are versus what could happen or what could be the potential. It's normal to have some of those fears or be afraid, but if you're finding that you're needing extra support and you're having higher levels of anxiety, maybe a majority of the time, or it's getting in the way of your ability to sleep at night, for example, and you can't cope, then that might be time to seek professional help. A licensed mental health professional can help you to understand the root of your feelings and then work with you to find some individualized management strategies that can specifically be helpful for you. All right. So
is about this.
Yeah. So Gail, maybe just give us like maybe 3 or 4 different tips.
Yep.
For today, and then we'll get into it another time with
Sure.
another scheduled broadcast.
Sure, you bet. Yeah, I was just about to go into coping and building resilience, so I think that's kind of the perfect pickup, right? It's a very agile environment that we're in today, and certainly, sometimes not only are states handling things differently, but so are different counties and cities, right? So sometimes it's hard to just navigate everything, but I think that there are 2 areas, right? There are physical area, so making sure that we're, still eating balanced meals and getting enough exercise, getting outside, getting in some sort of physical activity and taking a break from our screens. And then the emotional piece, right? Reaching out to people who are good supports, right? People who care about us, helping us to shift our focus away from things that might be stressful, and really structuring our time in a way that balances active types of activities versus ones that are more relaxing. So I think that's one of the other things. And then just, the other thing I was going to talk about is compassion, not only compassion for ourselves, but for others, right? We need to be kind to people, especially now more than ever. People are struggling in different ways. And while we're not alone in this, not everybody is going to feel the same way about the situation that we're in today. And so I think knowing that your feelings are valid and recognizing that other people's feelings are valid and just taking that non-judgmental, kind stance can go, an extremely long way for sure.
You talked about earlier that there's some, there's different ways that we are kind of like vulnerable or very stressed, because of our concerns with the virus, if it's going to affect us or not, or maybe some people with job loss or their health. What about the folks that are teleworking? I seem to handle it well, but, are there some tips for those of us who are teleworking from home,
You
and is
bet.
there an impact on us and or our families that are with us that we can have some nuggets from you that we can apply at home?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great topic, Sharon. And I've heard mixed things. Some people that are teleworking that have never done it before are loving it. Some people are just eager to get back into an office setting or back on site where they work. And so definitely there are mixed feelings about this. And I think, again, as people transition back into their work setting, to also recognize that not everybody's going to have the same experience or the same feeling about coming back to work as you are. And again, just being respectful and kind to each other. But I think as a lot of people are working from home right now, a couple of tips that I would just offer is, setting up a working space that actually is conducive with your productivity. So, that might be setting up a desk rather than being at your kitchen table. If you're, lucky enough to have a big enough space where you can actually have a room that you can close a door and then that's your time in the office, versus when you leave at the end of the day, you close the office door, the office is closed, so to speak. For me, my working area is in my main part of my, living room, dining room, kitchen area. So for me, it's powering down my laptop, shutting the lid, putting my work cell phone on silent and saying that's the end of the day, separating my work from my personal life and really setting that boundary. I know that a lot of people don't have childcare right now. One of the things that you might be able to do is reach out to EAP. You or your household member might have access to that, and a lot of times they can help with childcare issues. But certainly if you still have to have children at home, and sometimes you're maybe even doing schoolwork, setting some boundaries with them that they can understand, so they know when it's okay to interrupt you during your workday, when it's not okay. Having activities that can keep them occupied is also a great thing. And then the other thing that's interesting that people don't often think about, everybody on this Zoom call appears to be dressed today, maybe because you're on camera, but one of the perks of working from home is to wear sweatpants, right? And to be comfortable. But for some, they can't be productive if they don't actually get up in the morning and attend to their hygiene and put real clothes on, as I like to call it. So making sure that you're dressing for success for your day so that you can be productive. It might just be that that's what puts you in the right mindset to get ready. And then, of course, the last thing I would just say as a quick tip is just organizing your day, knowing that it might be different from your previous normal, right? You might be working some different hours than usual or breaking up your working day from your family time, but making sure that you have some sort of schedule and really putting it on the calendar so that that helps to hold you accountable and just be more scheduled. That makes sense.
Is there any kind of thing, anything that parents should be mindful of with the kids while the kids are also at home?
Yeah, one of the things that has come up a lot is now I feel like my kids are getting way too much screen time. I feel like the TV and the iPad and the computer, whatever it is suddenly the babysitter. But what I would encourage you to do is, first of all, give yourself some grace on that, because you're not used to being a daycare provider, school teacher, in addition to your regular work. And I'm sure you're not getting an additional salary for providing that for your child either. But, give yourself some grace there. And I would say if you feel like they're getting a lot of screen time, breaking up that screen time so that it's different types of activity. Maybe they're doing some schoolwork on their screen time, but then maybe they play a game, after they finish their schoolwork. And then maybe they, see some of their friends on the screen, and that's okay. So they might be getting more screen time than usual, especially because of distance learning and the way that we're interacting with each other now. But I would just say maybe breaking up the activity, and you can still use those simple rewards. Like if your child has a game that they really love to play, once they finish the things that you're requiring them to do, then let them play the game. So that might be just a simple quick tip that I would share.
As we enter the 3-day holiday weekend, for many it's a holiday, but for others it's a somber moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a moment of them remembering, their loved ones that have fought for all of us and aren't with us anymore. Right. What would you share with them, since they are dealing with this loss and maybe potentially some loneliness, as other people
Mm-hmm.
might be, enjoying it, but they might have to try to get through this weekend? What would you offer to them?
Yeah, I think, grief is definitely an issue that's been exacerbated by COVID, in addition to everything else that we kind of deal with and anniversaries that we might deal with, and it can cause people to feel symptoms of depression and anxiety, and being cognizant and recognizing that that's what you're experiencing, because honestly, these things can have an impact on our overall health and even our immune system, right? And experiencing grief and even loneliness is a natural response to what we're going through, and it's not necessarily always a bad thing, right? But being able to identify it and describe it and then come up with ways to cope with it is the most important thing, right? And I think we're grieving a lot of things right now at all different levels. For some, you are grieving the loss of a loved one and not being able to have a funeral like you normally would, for example. But we're grieving other things, whether it even be just plans that we've made or weddings or celebrations, whatever the case may be. And I think just going easy on yourself and giving yourself some grace and some compassion, knowing that you're dealing with more stress than usual, can go a long way. But I think, anytime we're struggling, spending time doing an activity that you enjoy that reduces in you feeling more relaxed. For me, sometimes it's just going out for a quick walk that can put me in a totally different headspace. So recognize what works for you. And that doesn't mean you have to sit on your floor and cross your legs and meditate, right? That doesn't work for everybody. So find an activity that is helpful for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail. And again, thank you for your understanding with what happened today. And certainly we will bring you back
No
on
problem.
the show. We typically end our program with the latest statistic on the census, but we did that earlier when we were trying to work out some of our technical difficulties. But the manager didn't hear it, so we're at 52% manager. So we're creeping up slowly, but incrementally, and we're hoping to get to 100%. We have another great show next week. We have Wawa will be on the program, followed by Florida Parent Light. We have Dr. Sydney Coupe on the line, as well as the international soccer development group called La Liga, to kind of tell us what's going on in the soccer world. And before we close, we just want to say thank you to all the men and women who have fought so hard with courage and just so much gusto to allow us to even enjoy these difficult moments through this coronavirus, but we still have the ability to move around freely and practice certain freedoms. So we certainly appreciate that. But since our manager is here, I'm sure he'd like to say a few words before we close. And so I pass it on to the manager.
No, this is your show. Just want to thank you again for coming on. Wanted to remind everybody this, there's a feel-good stuff here because I think we have a flyover on, is it Saturday? We're having a flyover to just to thank all the first responders that we've had. I have the details buried somewhere here, but just be on the lookout. Just Google flyover. I think it's a Blue Angels or some F-16, F-18, who knows what. But it's always exciting to see those magnificent machinery in the air. That's reminding us of how powerful a nation this is. At least it does that for me. The sound, the afterburner, just everything, the smoke, it just reminds me of our prowess. And also just to remind everyone not to let your guards down. This COVID-19 is real, and that whatever emergency measures we have in place, maintain them. Despite what has been said, it's a reality. And we don't want it to hit close to home to then say, oh my gosh, it is real. I know there are talks right now on the political level to open back hotels and beaches. I was a part of some of that this morning, and for Miami-Dade to do the same by June 1st. And personally, I shudder because I want to make sure that everything is in place for us as we go to do these things, and that we have the manpower or the person power to make sure that these things are properly regulated and we respond to them and we keep everybody safe. I always say what Commissioner Smith says as she departs, and I hope I'm not taking away anything from her if she's on the call, and it's to be safe. We have to practice being safe because we want all of us to be on the other side of COVID-19.
Yes.
Oh, that's it. Just
Yep.
have a great weekend.
And
Telling people to be safe can't be said enough, Mr. Manager.
Oh, there she goes. All right. I agree with you, Commissioner.
thank you.
Be
Thank you,
safe.
thank you so much. Everybody be safe. And we were going to show again the promotional flyer for next week, Thursday's program in celebration of Haitian American Month, Bon Bon Gai. We're having some technical difficulties again getting that flyer up, but we had it at the beginning of the program. But certainly you can find the information about that Zoom cast and that amazing panel on our social media page as well as our website. Wish everybody well for the weekend. Thank you so much and stay safe, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
They say